Happy video day, guys, and happy Make Up Your Mind day. So for today's video, we're going to be doing another Make Up Your Mind. Like always, every single week I do a Make Up Your Mind on the channel. For today's palette, it's actually one that released a few weeks back, and I was actually really interested in it. It was very intriguing to me. It's from Viseart, and it's called the Mini Chow Chow, Chou Chou, Chow Chow. I think it's called the Mini Chow Chow. And I really love the colors here. Like, the colors here are so beautiful, and it really called my attention, and I was like, ooh, I like you. So it was one of those palettes that I don't know if it's just some of the colors that like kind of like stick out at you and you're like, I want you. So of course, like always, before I go and spend my money, I want to search through my collection and see if I can find similar hues in my collection to see if this is worth it for me to pick up. I'm not really thinking about formulas. I've got a lot of really good formulas in my collection. So this palette actually has 8 shades and it's retailing for $30. So it's not a cheap palette considering how many shades it has and how expensive it is. I will tell you, Viseart has an amazing formula, which I am taking into consideration in this video, because in this video in particular, some of the palettes that I found some of these shades in are not my favorite palettes. So for me, it's gonna come down to color story and what I think of the actual color story when I swatch it all on my arm and see if this is something I'm going to use or if it's something that's gonna just sit in my drawer and I just thought it was really pretty and I bought it and then I just never use it. So that's what we're gonna be doing in this video. I'm gonna be showing you guys all the palettes that I found these colors in, and of course go through your palettes as well and see what colors you can find and leave those comments down below. Everybody loves to hear what other people find in their collections because everybody may not have my palettes. They might have your palette. So don't forget to leave those comments down below, and let's go ahead and I'm gonna show you guys everything that I found right now. So before we do this, if you guys are new, you've never seen me, I'm Christina Brooke, and I would love it if you maybe would want to take a second and hit the subscribe button so you guys can see me again. I do these videos every single week with different palettes. So let me show you guys my results. So here are the results. So I have to admit, I feel like some of these colors I found pretty close. If the hue is off by a tad, it may be off by a little tad, but I feel like in other palettes sometimes I'm like, this one I almost felt like I saw that color story. Like I really saw that color story really good after swatching this on my arm, and I feel like I was able to come up with something that looks very similar. So I'm gonna go ahead and share with you guys the palettes that I found these in, and it wasn't really that many palettes, to be honest. I found one color in my Huda Beauty Smoky Obsessions, which I guess you guys would probably guess what color came out of here. Then I found a few colors in this new palette that I got from BoxyCharm. It's the Ace Beauté Scarlet Dusk palette. And finally, the palette that I found the majority of the colors was the Jaclyn Hill palette. This is the original Jaclyn Hill palette. And I feel like I found a lot of colors in here, and I was actually pretty shocked because I was looking at this palette going, damn, you've got a lot of, at least some of the colors, you know, like some of the more toned down colors came out of this palette. And I actually had to jump into one shade from Natasha Denona's Sunrise palette. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start. We've got 8 colors to go over, and let me show you guys where I found them. So for the first color, this color is what made me think of the Jaclyn Hill palette, and actually the next color too, because the name is what made me go, huh, I recognize that name. But anyways, so this color, I actually jumped into Jaclyn Hill and I went into this, look what I just did. Oh my God, Christina. So back to what we were talking about. So I jumped into this color right here called Silk Cream. Now, doesn't Silk Cream look similar? Doesn't this look similar? Can I focus? Can you focus on my finger? You get it? Yeah. So Silk Cream to me just looks really similar. Like I was looking at this color and I was looking at the color in the swatch and I was like, yeah, that's really spot on. I feel like if there is a difference, it's going to be very minute. Like it's going to be so little. Like I really cannot see there being such a huge difference between these two hues. So I do feel like I own that one. And the next color is really what made me go, wait, Jaclyn Hill. The color is called Creamsicle. And the color that reminds me of the color is called Creamsicle. So inside of Jaclyn Hill, there's this color called Creamsicle that just looks so much like Creamsicle in the Viseart palette. I don't know. They look a lot alike. I do feel like the Viseart one may be a little bit more orange toned than this one. This one might go a little yellow. So what I did was I jumped into this color Butter and I added some butter to it. And when you swatch those together, it makes the yellow a little bit more orange, and it does resemble the Viseart one like really similar. So I feel like the first 2 colors For sure I have them because like I say in every video, I've got to use my eyeshadow palette, so I need to use those colors. So I feel like I have those two pretty good. Okay, so the next color I was like, let me see how much I can stick into Jaclyn Hill, because I saw that there was this color right here called Firework, and Firework looked really similar to the color that's inside of the new Chow Chow palette, but I added a little bit of Queen to it just to kind of shift the color a little bit more peach, and by adding a little bit gold on top of this color, I was able to make it a little bit more like a peach tone than it is right now. So if you add a little bit of that gold on top, it kind of starts to turn it a little bit more like a peach. So I feel like I was able to create that color with the Jaclyn Hill palette, at least pretty similar. If anything, that may be one of the only colors in this whole palette that I was like, wow, you're really, really different. And I mean, I like that color, but I feel like even in the Sunrise palette, maybe from Natasha Denona, maybe I can kind of create that color. And I just remembered too, there's a color inside of the Jeffree Star palette. There's this color inside of Jeffree Star that might be even closer. So, I mean, I've got a few of those like kind of like peachy toned topper shades, so I think I'm pretty good with that one. The next one was actually the one that really sticks out to me the most. And it's really funny because when you do this, if you guys do this at home with me, I feel like every time I do this, I start to go, I might have just liked that because it was a pretty color. But like when I swatch it and I look at it, I'm like, am I gonna use that? And that is what happened in here. So the color that I was able to find was inside of this Ace Butte palette, and it's this color called Pink Moon that looks so similar to this Chow Chow color, which is like a real pink. I was able to find another color inside of the Juvia's Place Masquerade Mini, but it had a little bit of sparkles in it, so that's why I didn't use it. But I feel like that color, so cool. But how many times have I used my Riviera palette that has like a real stark pink in it? How many times have I used my Juvia's Place one? Not that much. And this palette, even though it's actually not that bad of quality, it's not the best, but it's okay. This palette that's pretty decent. I hardly use it because of the colors in it. So I feel like I've had this pink color a few times over, maybe not as pink as this besides this palette, and I don't really jump into it. So that's like the pop, like that is like the color of this palette, and I feel like, was I just in love with the look? And that happens a lot, and that's why I like to do this, because sometimes I feel like we fall in love with the look of a palette and then we don't really realize that it's not something we may use. So as I kept on going, the next one I actually had to jump into Huda Beauty, and I mean, it's this metallic silver. I mean, from what I'm seeing, it's a metallic silver. And Huda Beauty's formula in this metallic silver is literally like liquid metal gold. I love it. Anytime I need to use a silver, and there's a lot of times that I feel like adding silver to a look, I always jump into this palette. Eventually, I'm going to hit pan on it. Eventually, it's going to be gone. And then I can invest in another palette that has a nice silver. But I'm not going to buy the Chow Chow palette for the silver. You know what I'm saying? So right now, I feel like I'm already halfway through this palette. I'm like, I don't see something that's really making me say, yes, I need you. And I will say that I think that the silvery shade inside of the Chow Chow may be a little bit lighter, and it might have a little bit more glistening, glimmery things in it. And I've told you guys this before, sometimes with those glistening, glimmery things, if you just add a little bit of like glitter from another palette on top, sometimes you can kind of recreate the look. So it's a cool shade. It's a cool shade. I'm not gonna knock the shade. The shade looks cool. I just don't know if I would buy a whole palette for it. So inside of the Sunrise, the one color that I actually pulled out of here is Morgan. And you guys know I talk about Morgan a lot. Morgan's like one of those colors that's in a lot of palettes. Morgan swatch is a little bit darker than it looks inside of the pan, and it looks really similar to me. The one inside of this new palette may be a little bit more than Morgan. Morgan might be a little bit more toned down. But if that is the case, we also have this color called Crimson right here that looks like it's a little bit of a bright orange. And I can mix that in with this color right here, and we can go a little bit more, you know? So I do feel like that color is a cool color, but I have the Orange You Glad palette from ColourPop, and I will tell you how many times I use that orange palette, and it's not as much as I use the Sunrise palette. So I think I know how I feel about oranges. So the next color I felt like I didn't have, and I was really like, oh, well, I know this color is not a color that I would own because I really don't have that many like pinky colors. But then I remembered that this color right here, Aura, and literally this color was almost the same. So I was like, I have that one. So we're down to one color to really make this palette worth it. And when I was looking at that color, Aurora, I actually saw this color right next to it called Aruba, and Aruba actually looks really similar to the color as well. So I felt like that looked really similar to that last tone. So at the end, I was actually able to see this color story. And I will tell you, like, the most exciting color in here after swatching it on my arm and like really looking at the color story was the icy color, which is that silver. And at the end of the day, when I was looking at all the other colors, I was like, okay, there's a lot of oranges, there's a lot of pinks, and pinks and oranges are not colors I typically wear. And then the silver was really the one that was like, oh, it's so beautiful, and maybe I don't have it, and maybe it's more icy than the one that I have. But at the end, when I really stepped back from this palette and really looked at it, I decided it's time for me to make up my mind. I really don't need this palette. I really don't. A lot of like the soft transitional shades I can find inside of the Jaclyn Hill palette, so that is just a reality that it looks really, really similar. And then the colors that are very bright in here are actually very similar to the colors that I can find in this Ace Butte palette. And I don't feel like I need to invest in a very nice formula for those very bright colors because I don't use them. So it's just gonna sit there and I'm not gonna use it. So all the rest of the colors, like I said, I feel like I can find in Jaclyn Hill, and really that icy, beautiful color is not worth it for me to just pick up the whole palette for. So I feel like this was a palette that was just really pretty. It was like, you know, like when you look online and you see those really pretty shirts or blouses and you love the colors and you're just like, oh, that photograph's so beautiful. So then you always buy the one that photographs the best. And when you get it home, you're like, it looks so much prettier in the picture. And then you realize that maybe the one that was like a little bit less pretty in the picture was actually the one that you would wear more. That's like this. So I feel like this one just photographs so gorgeous and the color story looks so pretty. But when I really swatched it and looked at it and really thought about it, it's not really a color story that I am going to get a lot of use out of. So I really feel like it was just not worth it for me to pick it up at the end of the day. When I got into this whole YouTube thing, I really want to show you guys different products and talk about things, but I mean, I'm not going to try to get bankrupt either. You know, like I'm not just going to go out and buy makeup just to buy makeup. I need to like this stuff, especially if I'm going to purchase it and I'm not being sent it. It has to be something I really want to buy because, I mean, who just wants to buy everything for no reason? So, I mean, at the end of the day, even though it's a great formula and Viseart is a company that I really, really like, I just feel like I personally won't get use out of it. If you guys don't have these palettes and this is your type of color story, I am going to tell you, Viseart has an amazing formula. I really, really love their palettes, so it may actually be a great buy for you. It's just not one for me. But like always, guys, I want to know from you guys down below. Don't forget to leave me those comments. If you guys have this palette or if you have a palette similar to it and you were able to find colors that are even more similar, leave those comments down below because people love to read it and they like to see if maybe you own a palette that they may own and, you know, they might not own my palette. So like always, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button before you leave, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.